Welcome back to another episode of the Strength and Speed Podcast. I'm your host, Mud Gear Battle Alliance Pro and Strength and Speed owner Evan Preparis. I'm sleep deprived, so my brain is functioning slower than normal. We are here post OCR Everest. Before we get to that, quick word from this episode's sponsor. This episode is brought to you by Squirrel's Nut Butter, the anti-chafing product. We were giving away free samples at OCR Everest, Tough Mudder, New England, and it kept me chafe-free. We'll hear a little more about any chafing problems from the crew in a little bit. All right, joining me, I've got my dad, Terry Preparis.
Hello, still awake.
Pit crew and pacer. I also have Daniel Leonard, pacing.
Here I am again.
And then I have filmmaker Bobby Ross.
Yo.
So we are recording this Sunday night. We stayed awake all night Saturday pacing me. And so what we're going to do is we're going to run through OCR Everest, talk about some of the challenges, which is like basically everything. And then we're going to talk about some things that were kind of unexpected and, mention where you can donate for Infinite Hero. So we'll start off at the top. So the plan was to do Everest, so an Everest thing. So it's essentially you climb the height of Everest, but the twist was I'm going to do it with obstacles. So using Tough Mudder obstacles. So we picked Tough Mudder New England because it is the only Tough Mudder course on a ski mountain, and it's specifically at Stratton, Vermont, which is the same site as the OCR both last year and this year. So we will be back here in a couple of months. But the plan was, essentially multi-lap the course during the day, and then when the course closes at night, we're going to just kind of go up and down the side of the mountain, and then go back on the course Sunday and kind of finish up for the 29,029 feet. So Bobby, I think I pulled you into this mess. Well, I guess I pulled my dad in first because he's got obligated to show up because he's my family.
It's very true.
So let's Bobby, give me some of your. Actually, Daniel, I told you about the event first, but didn't recruit you. So tell me what your thoughts were when I told you this was the plan for 2022's fundraiser.
Specifically, was actually we discussed this at the OCR World Championships last year, and when he first brought it up to me, and I remember when you were telling me, I was staring at the mountain after just going up and down it, thinking, "This is a horrible, horrible, horrible idea." But sure, yes, I'm in. So, but again, just thinking, and we were, doing quick math on how many times we'd have to go up and down, and just doing it once, going up and down, completely just wrecked me. And thinking, okay, if I had to do this more than once in 24 hours, I can't imagine how.
Yeah. When I did OCRWC last year, I knew the plan. I knew the 2022's fundraiser already. So I mentally prepared myself to be well, what would this feel like if I had to go up and down it multiple more times? So it felt easier than normal last year. That being said, I enticed Bobby to come along, and for some reason he said yes, which I'm sure he's regretting this weekend. So tell me kind of what your thoughts were coming into the event and kind of what you were expecting once we got here.
Yeah, I think my expectations were just pain. Whenever Evan asked me to do something, we were joking earlier that the best thing about being friends with Evan is that he lowers your expectations about everything. You're like, oh man, before you're like, well, I have to go all the way to the top of Maslow's hierarchy of needs if I want to be happy. But at this point, I'm just happy if I get to sleep through the night, which is great. And that's exactly how this one ended up as well, because there's something really mentally draining about going only uphill, right? There's no feeling of relief. There's no regular rhythm of ascent and descent in something like this, because as Evan is going to say, the only thing we did that he did for 10 hours was just walk uphill. And it's something that weighs on you mentally in ways that you really can't expect, that you can't really prepare for. And so at the beginning, the first time we went through the course, I was like, this is horrendous. Just like Daniel was saying, this is a lot. But as we started to settle into the rhythm of just climbing uphill, it got a lot worse. Yeah.
So we started off doing a lap of the 15K. And what was interesting was because the only thing I care about is ascent. When we were on uphills, I'm like, oh, good, I'm making ground. And then we'd turn and it'd be a downhill, and I'd be like, another downhill, right? Because it's not adding towards my overall goal. So I'm pretty sure I was the only person on the course that was upset at any flats or downhills. So I did the 15K once, did the 5K once, and I figured, kind of based off my watch readings, the 5K elevation seemed to be better elevation per mile. And then if anyone's curious, right? So typically most GPS watches read via barometric pressure. So as I was going to the water obstacles, I was making sure I was keeping my watch out of the water to make sure I wouldn't throw off the reading, which was something, I knew about coming into it, but just an additional reminder I had to keep myself every time we came up to a water obstacle.
I remember bringing this up, and I was like, I don't know what's wrong with my watch, Evan, but I read we got 59,000 miles on the first go.
Yeah, because you were dunking your wrist.
Mine was going down in the water like several times.
So on Block Ness Monster, I had keep my eye with one hand out of the water. I took off my watch and gave it to Bobby when I went on the Arctic Enema because you had to go under the actual tube. So made sure that happened. So we did the 5K for a while. Course closed. Originally, Tough Mudder said we were gonna have to leave the festival and essentially go find a road or something and go up and down a road. And the road we scouted out on Friday, the day before, we eventually were like, I'm gonna get killed by a car. So we grabbed a couple of road guard vests just in case. And then as the kind of night progressed, they're like, oh no, well you can stay here, you just can't be on the actual course. So we ended up using a trail. If anyone remembers OCRWC, it was like the furthest right trail, looking at the Stratton Mountain, and it was that descent we did kind of back into the festival area. I know, Dan, you did a couple of laps up that trail. Tell me a little bit about that.
I actually specifically remember coming down that trail because I believe it was the Carabiner ladder that we kind of crawled under, I believe, or something like that, and then I think Twist on Life. Twist on Life was right there. So I remember coming down that, and I remember it was a very controlled fall going down. And so when we turned to go up, and I was like, I remember coming down this, and it was like quite all out. So going back up it, I was like, this is gonna hurt. And sure enough, like every time I was pacing Evan on this, the first part of that trail ascend was fine, and then we turn that corner and go like basically vertically up, and it just smoked me every time. And then I found my little rock, then I would stop, and I was like, all right, Evan, go ahead and go. I'll wait for you here.
I named it the Daniel Leonard rock, which is where he would kind of lay down on and let me do the last couple hundred feet of ascent by myself.
Okay, I have a story about that spot. So when Evan decided that was where we wanted to try first for our post-Tough Mudder course runs throughout the rest of the evening, the very first thing Evan said was, yeah, I saw a bear.
Yeah.
He's like, yeah, there's a bear right up there. And I was like, Evan, it's about to get dark. Why are we continuing to take the bear trail? And so we do the bear trail. What did you do, like 3 times?
I did it twice with Ray. I did it twice with you.
Oh, yeah.
I think I did it like 6 times or so.
Yeah.
So you did a lot. And then so that's right. You had been doing it a while. And then once night started to fall, you and I were going out. And like a raccoon went across the trail, and it scared both of us. I mean, it was like an audible yelp. And at that point I realized if that had been a bear, I would be dead. And I started to think, you know what, Evan may not be my friend.
So, we kind of reevaluated at that point because the first couple hundred feet of the trail was you were kind of by houses, so it wasn't too bad. But then that second part, this where it got steeper and where Daniel liked to take his break, you were literally just in the woods. There was no houses nearby. There's no roads nearby. If you hurt yourself, there's no way a medical vehicle could access you.
They couldn't see.
They couldn't even see, right? So there was so little ambient light, and I was like, all right, this is starting to be a bad idea. We were making poor choices about what's going to happen.
And being that we were only going to get more tired and more exhausted, the choices were just going to get that much worse.
So we ended up switching to
also too, going down that actually ended up going down very, very loose gravel, large rock, and as we lost light, it was prone for injury. So.
Yeah. So we end up realizing there's a trail, like the road at the beginning of that, kind of the road runs right by it. So we're like, all right, well, we can use that road. And so we switched to the road. And at this point in the night, I don't know how many, we've gone about 14,000 feet of elevation gain and about 14,000 feet of descent. So we've been going up and down. And then we start doing the math on how long it's going to take. And assuming we don't slow down, it would take about 29 hours. And I was like, all right, well, well, what do we do? And it's like, well, the goal of the event is to, one, raise money for Infinite Hero Foundation, and two, is to challenge yourself, right? So, and it climb the height of Everest. Nothing about descending the height of Everest. It's about climbing.
And I kept bringing up to Evan several times. I've seen people Everest on TV. They helicopter down, or they get bussed down, or they gondola ride down. So,
or they die.
Yes, or you die.
A lot of them die.
So the descent, I was like, that's not part of Everesting. It's the ascending part. We can just descend in the car.
And kind of a funny side note, after I looked, when we finished, I looked at Stratton actually does an official event called 29029. So it's you climb the height of Everest. And I looked on the website and it says you climb up and then you take the gondola back down. So like part of me at first was like, oh, I don't know if this is right. And then I was like, no, it's about climbing. So what we ended up doing was this road that runs right next to the mountain, or like kind of up the mountain. We ended up walking up it. Probably was about 600 feet of gain. And then we would get in the car, drive back to the base, and repeat. And essentially that's what 12 hours looked like. Is that how long we were out there?
Well, we ended at about 7:30 in the morning. So I guess it was about 12.
Yeah.
I think it was a little less than 12.
Maybe 10.
Yeah, I think about 10.
When you started, you were still light?
Barely,
yeah.
No, it was dark. It was dark.
It was completely dark.
It was dark, so you must have, I think the sun went down around 8:30.
Yeah.
So 9 to 7:30.
Bobby, you want to tell us a little about
10.5 hours.
Some of the random discussions we were having as we were climbing up the mountain and the murder house?
All right, so I've never been to Vermont. I've spent a little bit of time in New England, but until you have been up a mountain road that has zero like city lights or traffic lights, there's really nothing to kind of like give you any bearing of like where civilization is. It's just trees everywhere and these random really expensive houses that in the daytime look super, super nice, but at nighttime, when it's just two guys in vests and headlamps, there's a bunch of noises out in the trees, and like we started talking about Sasquatch, we started talking about Bigfoot. At one point, it sounded like there were people out on their front porch shooting guns, and we hear someone say, "What are those?" I think
they were BB guns. It was a birthday party or something.
It was terrible. And then at the very top of the hill was a house that to us seemed like the perfect murder house. It was just. It was like right out of the trees. Like it was completely dark until you like put your headlamp on it, and it's just like we started freaking ourselves out and talking about UFOs. Started talking about just like kind of whatever like you say when your brain stops like kind of following a linear path from one thought to the next, which I know Evan found very entertaining.
It was entertaining. So then the murder house looked like it was all stone. Like it looked like an unfinished stone building
with a meat wreath.
And then with a meat wreath, so like a wreath made of human body parts or something. And then what's funny is like 12 hours later, the sun comes up, and it's like a nice house. It's like a gray, it's got normal gray siding.
Completely.
It's got a brown, nice wreath on the outside, and it was like we were overthinking this. And we're like, don't turn around in the murder house driveway. Don't do it. Because at that time, it's middle of the night. It's 3 a.m. So we're
it's at the top of the hill we were going up. So by the time you're up there, you're physically exhausted and mentally tired. So the repeating of the murder house and all the things that can go wrong just kept coming up.
So we're ascending, and I'd say the one thing I was like really kind of upset at myself for was I had a bunch of people who said they were coming to the event, but they didn't explicitly say they were going to pace me. So I assumed we were going to have more pacers. And my friend Ray, who was at Infinite Hero Honor Challenge the last 2 years, came out and paced early in the day. And then it was basically the 3 people on this podcast pacing me. So Bobby, who's supposed to be filming, not pacing me. You have Daniel, whose job is pacing me, but outweighs me by a couple of pounds. And then my dad, 75, but strong. But normally his job is primarily pit. So, but it got to the point where I mean, the crew, we looked terrible. Like everyone looked terrible. Myself, Bobby, Daniel, and then my dad had to step in and start pacing.
Yeah, I was riding in the car because I didn't want to stay by myself in base camp. It was cold. It was cold in the stupid mountains there. Sitting in the dark, mixing up Perpetuum drinks and heat and pills and all the other things I do as a pit member. And I said, I'll ride in the car. So I'm riding in the car, and I'm looking at Bobby and Daniel, and they're not looking too good. They look kind of tired,
And at that point, I'm aggressive.
I said, why am I sitting here? What am I, a piece of luggage? I said, I could probably make the climb once. I mean, Evan's not moving. He's moving fast, but not that fast. He's not running. I said, well, I can. So I did it the first time. I'm breathing hard. I said, that was pretty good. I'm proud of myself. Well, then they expected me to do it every other time, and I was doing pretty good. I think I got four repetitions in over the course of several hours, and we were getting near the end, and the sun was coming up, and I tried to do one more, and it was very sad. I lost Evan. He went up the hill, and I was a good 50 yards behind him, I think.
Yeah. So the very first one, Bobby's like, all right, so I'll be back in 22 minutes, which is like kind of the standard. And I was like, maybe make it a little sooner. Like, I don't know. And my dad did fine. He did fine. And then he did fine on all the other ones. And then the very last one, again, you ended up falling back on that last one, which is, it was, I don't know, 6 a.m, 6:30.
Yeah, it was light out.
And I turn around and you're not there. And I'm like, again, I'm sleep deprived. I'm tired. And my brain starts going nuts. I'm like, oh my God, I gave my dad a heart attack. He's dead on the side of the road. I was like, what have I done with my life?
He's part of the meat wreath.
He's at the murder house. So I start like panicking, and then you crested the hill, and I was like, oh God. I was like, oh.
Yeah, well, one time I lost sight of him. I said, I don't know which way he turned, I said, oh, maybe he went up this way. And I turned, it was someone's driveway. I said, oh, I guess he didn't go that way. So I did follow him, but...
So that's kind of what, I mean, you look at all the other endurance events I've done, all the other charity events, and the stress I put on the crew was insane for this one. It was absolutely insane. Like, they did so much more work than is normal for a human to ask of another person. So, like, I can't even stress how big of a kind of team effort this was, even though I'm the one who did the, obviously, all the climbing for the charity event, but, like, I needed pacers there to keep me on track. I needed people to take my mind off of things, and I needed that psychological support of having someone physically out there with me. So it was just I was telling Bobby, like, when I get to fatigue levels, I go from essentially normal, and then I guess I get tired. I become more talkative because I'm trying to take my mind off things, and then I get more tired. I go silent. We just kind of sit in the pain cave. And I know there were several laps with both Daniel and Bobby where there was no talking. They literally just got out of the car, and the two of us we walked in silence for 25 minutes up a hill.
I remember at one point you were like, are you okay? And I'm like, dude, I'm just in my pain cave.
Yeah. And so the only time we talked is like we would do a live video, and then we'd go back to immediate silence.
I've worked with Evan on a couple events, and so I'm very familiar with the silence part. I actually do very similar tactics. So like it was like I would just turn and look at him. Okay, he's still moving good. All right, turn around, keep one foot in front of the other, and then then like you said, he'd go live, and we'd literally turn it on, talk, he'd turn it off, and it's back to complete silence.
So normal, talkative, silence, and then The lowest level for me is like hyper emotional, where if you say anything to me, I'm on the verge of tears. So we hit that towards the end of the climb, where I was like like anyone said anything to me, I was like, all right, hold it together. And essentially the step below that is I basically like give up and like lay down on the side. So we didn't get to the point where I had to lay down, but I was proud. Like I kept moving the whole time. At no point did I stop and rest. It was climbing. And I was fully expecting like my legs to lock up, but again, I think it was the nutrition and kind of staying on top of things that my legs were obviously exhausted, but like it didn't feel like they were getting worse. It just felt like they were constant, low, dull pain.
My left leg did lock up, like at around it might have been 3 a.m. Like it was just like I had like hit my limit. I was walking without bending my knee. Because I was like, I can't do anything with it, and then that was like a really low point for me, like mentally, physically, like that was like the deepest I'd ever kind of like pushed just to walk, and it was like now I'm like, oh, it's funny, it's fun, but at the time I was what am I doing here? Somebody give me some lemonade.
So we eventually finish up the road section again. So at that point, like Bobby was saying, we were just doing ascents. So it's just climbing, and then you sit in the car for feels like 30 seconds. I think it was like 2 minutes, 3 minutes. I don't know.
At the most.
Every time it felt too short, and then we got out of the car and walked up the hill again. And so we hit basically 27,000 feet at this point, and we go back over to the Tough Mudder Village, and the plan was to do one 10K lap. So they did the 5K and the 15K before, and I knew about how much elevation they had. And I was like, oh, the 10K should be that should like just get us over the line. And then we looked at the 10K map, and it looked like almost exactly the same as the 15K. And I was like, there's no way this is 10K. It's got to be longer. And it was a little over 7. So, but at that point, so we line up, and we're in the starting corral, and Sean Carvel does his thing. Amazing as always. Can't say enough good things about Sean.
Love you, Sean.
Yeah. So that was Bobby, that was your first time hearing Sean. Tell me a little bit about your impressions.
I was like holding back tears. I was like, I don't know this man at all. And it's like, I don't know how he's got his like finger on like my heartstrings, but he was plucking them like a harp.
Yeah.
Like a wonderful sonorous harp.
So then he hands me the mic, and I feel like my brain was firing so slow. Like normally, he hands me the mic pretty regularly to do like Infinite Hero stuff, and he handed it to me, and I was just like, I'm climbing a mountain. Please donate. I felt like I had nothing. I feel like I was so. I don't know if it sounded as bad as in my mind.
It didn't sound as bad as in your mind, but anybody who's heard you speak, you knew like you're so far not normal.
My name is Evan Per. Evan Per.
Wasn't quite that. Yeah, it was. It's off my normal verbose self, I guess. I don't know. So yeah, we started the 10K, and a couple hours earlier, I was like, Bobby, are you gonna do the 10K lap with me? And he's like, oh hell no. And we started the 10K, and Bobby started running. So what changed?
I had not intended to run that with you. I was still wearing my my heat underlayer and my hoodie from the night before. I was like, I'm just gonna like run the first 100 meters or so with you, and then kind of walk back. And then I was going to go like hop in the car and head on over to like the big cluster of obstacles and just kind of finish it with you, like do the last mile or so. But like when we were like out there, like you start going through all these like layers of pain and just like kind of like peeling back those parts of yourself that you think, oh, I could never go any further than this. Well, maybe I could go a little further. And I'm not like an elite athlete. I mean, I would really probably just describe myself as like athlete-esque more than anything. Like, I could do some things, but it was just like there, like at that final lap, I had to finish it. I had to see it through. I had to see the end. I had to see where all of this was going. And so like I like took off in my hoodie and just didn't stop. Except for the one time I made you stop. The only time you stopped, I was like, I got to take a minute.
Yeah, that was the only time we stopped walking uphill. And and we had already surpassed the height of Everest.
Yeah, we
Which
finished.
is why we allowed us to stop. Also, Bobby was like, "I'm lightheaded," and I was like, "We should probably, otherwise I'm gonna have to like carry him back," which we did for the hero carry, and
Yeah.
so but yeah, so we were trucking along on the 10K. Before we get to that though, Dad, what was your thoughts on the weather for the kind of the weekend as a whole?
Well, it was very cool. I was surprised, and it was windy. I mean, the temperature was pleasant, but there was at the base of the mountain. It was very windy all day and all night, so it was pretty unpleasant to be out there all night. And I had bought a tent, but we hadn't really decided what we were going to do, what we'd be allowed to do. And by the time they said, yeah, we could stay there overnight, I just didn't have the enthusiasm to pitch a tent. I mean, and I wouldn't have been in it anyway. I mean, when I do Toughest Mudders and World Toughest Mudders with Evan, I have a tent, but it's basically for the equipment.
Yeah, it's just on the equipment.
I found out. I mean, I've been to 7 World's Toughest and probably at least a half a dozen of Toughest, and I found the best thing for me is not to sleep. If I go to sleep and I wake up, I'm pretty useless. It takes me a long time to get my motor running again. So shout out to to Rain. they're my savior. This event about midnight, when we started it with the car shuttle and running the hill. Well, at least that's when I started. I was pretty useless. In fact, Daniel said, "Hey, why don't we can bring 2 cars up?" And I said, "I can't drive. No, I'm going to be. You're going to find me in the woods in the car. No, I'll just ride. And I started taking some rain, and it works. Let me tell you. By 1, 2 o'clock, I felt pretty good.
I really feel like the FDA should regulate that stuff a little bit more.
Well, when I got some more samples on Sunday, the guy looked at me and goes, "This has a lot of caffeine." I guess he was afraid it would kill me. I was going to chug it. I said, "No, I know how to use it. You sip it. It's not."
I chug
it's not a protein drink. You don't chug the whole thing down.
It's like rocket fuel. That's what my toughest motor at Philly. Like the lap I burnt it down was because I slammed half a can of rain after being sleepy, and I was on fire, just chasing people
160, 170 grams of caffeine.
Yeah.
300.
It's 300 for the can.
Oh, yeah, half of it. Yeah.
My heart would explode if I drank the whole thing in a single lap and then tried to run. Yeah. So we hit the milestone, but then we still had a little over a mile of course left, and there was a bunch of water obstacles, and that wind was blowing, and I was shaking. I was shaking that last mile, so I had my hands clenched, and then eventually I listened to my own advice because I always tell people if you're wearing a wet clothing, it's just making you colder. So I took off my shirt finally, so the sun would actually hit my skin and dry it, and I felt a little bit better.
He looks like a wet poodle. In that last year, just
yeah. So and then we Berlin Walls. They had it was kind of cool. They had the course set up similar to OCRWC, where you kind of come down through that housing area and then run right through the village. So I really like that they kept that, but they used the same path as OCRWC for the ending. And then instead of where the Urban Sky.
Yeah, Urban Sky.
Where Urban Sky was, they had Berlin Walls, so essentially just an 8-foot wall for Tough Mudder. And then you kind of same path you took up towards Ricochet, except you took a hard right. Where OCRBC had their little A-frame, that's where Tough Mudder had the Mudderhorn. So the obnoxious, tallest obstacle in obstacle course racing, I believe.
Yeah.
A-frame. And then we turn around and you basically come running through electroshock. So we had Clinton Jackson at electroshock therapy, as always.
Yeah.
So good. I love Clinton. He did such a good job, as always. He always has such nice things to say. I always feel like, I got to go thank him after. He's too nice to me.
Makes you feel so seen,
Yeah.
It's either funny or nice, but they're both awesome, though.
So it was good to see him, and I've been looking forward to see him all day. And then Daniel's like, "You want me to go through electroshock therapy with you?" So tell me, where did that come from?
Well, my plan was always to find Evan towards the end of the the race. But funny thing was like, so about an hour and 15 minutes after he took off, I said, okay, I'm gonna go find him. And I wandered around the course, being misdirected by the volunteers. So after about 2 miles of going, just wandering around the mountain, I found one of the obstacles. I said, well, I'm just going to stay here to wait for him. So eventually he came through, kind of go down to the end. And I was like, okay. So we were going down the last part of it, and I see his legs shaking as we're going down the hill. I was like, okay. I've been hit with electroshock therapy. I've seen a lot of people get hit with electroshock therapy, and you can faceplant. And I thought that's not the way we would want to end this event with Evan faceplanting electroshock therapy.
Lying in the mud, quivering.
Yes. So I was like, hey, you want me to go through with you? And the answer was not quite clear. So I was like, oh, I'll just plan on going through. And right before when we got there, I was like, hey, so you want me in front of you or behind you? He said, yeah, you can go behind me. I was like, okay. So I was just prepared. Yeah. Just in case, because the wind actually picked up, which made it a little worse too.
Yeah, because the wires were moving. They
started moving. So you could pick a path like, all right, I'm going to slide between here, and right as you're going through, the wind blows and it just hits you. Like, I actually got hit more times than I've in accumulated time of doing every one of the events. Like, I've never been hit by electroshock therapy that many times, grand total, than I did that one time going through there.
You must have been thinking. So the electroshock therapy only hits you once, and then there's a couple second reset. So you can't get shocked boom, 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 boom.
No. I got hit by multiple ones.
You must have been taking all of them, because I only got hit once.
I think I took, it was maybe 10.
What?
Yes. Really? And so I was like, wow, this is a lot. I was like, I went through this earlier, on my course, and I think I got hit like twice. But I was like, that was my main thing, was like, hey, I don't want him to face plant at the end of this event. It's not gonna look good. So.
Well, he asked me, do you want me to go through with you? And I'm not gonna say yes. I want my friends to go through the electric obstacle with me. So I gave like a nonchalant answer, because I don't want to force him into it. I've already made the guy walk up a mountain literally all night long. And then sometimes when everyone was exhausted, they would just follow me in the car. So the car is creeping along at 2 miles an hour.
We did that
uphill.
5 or 6 times.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a lot. Yeah.
So, I mean...
That was really depressing.
That was horrible.
The funny one was, I was towards the end of the night, nobody knows, but I was planning. I was like, I'm going to reserve quite a bit for the bad hours. So it's the past 3-4 o'clock.
Yeah.
It really hurts. And then, right before the sun starts to come up, you start getting some energy. And then right towards the end, where you can see the finish line so close, and it's just... it hurts the most, because you want to stop. You're like, I'm so close to not being done, but being done for this hill. And so there was one, I finished a lap. That's what we call the up and down. And so I sit in the back, and I had my dry robe on, and it got really warm, and all of a sudden I dozed off. And when I woke up, I looked over to the side. I see Evan walking by himself, and I jumped into a panic. And I told Bobby, drive up 20 feet, drop me, and let me out. And it was such a panic. By the time I got to Evan, 20 feet, I'm hyperventilating. I'm like, okay, now I got to go walk up the hill.
So, Daniel, what did you say when, I think it was right after the 15K, it was about this compared to other events that I've done for charity?
I actually said it right when I thought it in my mind, actually, when he told me about it 8 months ago.
Yeah.
I was like, this is the worst thing ever.
Worse than all
of them. I was like, I know. And I told him, I said, I know it might not be the worst for you, but for us, it's the worst.
Oh, it's definitely the worst for the crew.
But but the worst idea ever. I mean, and it's not even close.
Okay, Dad, you've been there for almost all of them. How do you think this compares to like Endure the Gauntlet or OCR America or OCR America?
Well,
2?
it was probably the most unique OCR I've ever attended, in the sense that we were spending so much time in the car driving in the middle of the night. It was almost like a road rally that was going nowhere. Yeah, it was unique. I'm glad I got the chance to pace him. I've never paced him before at an OCR. I did pace him in a 100-mile race at one point when he was hurting. But that was like 6-7 years ago, probably.
2014.
2014, all right, even more. So I enjoyed being part of the athletic group. It's not something I planned.
Thank you for doing it.
But as I said, I was sitting in the car and I said, well, I got to do something to help this situation. So thanks for the opportunity.
Yeah. So we crossed the finish line, and then people were looking rough, dozing off in our kind of pit area. We were kind of hanging out, just kind of waiting to try to get some more donations. I forgot to give a shout out to Becca from Infinite Hero Foundation. She was there all weekend long at the tent, collecting donations, telling people about Infinite Hero, and then also again another shout out to Sean Carvel. Kind of every time I came through the lap, he would hand me the mic and let me plug the foundation and talk a little bit about what we were doing at the event. And yeah, it was. I don't know if it was my worst one. I think it might.
It was the worst one.
For me, Endure the Gauntlet, I think was worse. This is probably second. I'm gonna put this as number 2. Yeah, and then probably OCR Mill actually is 3. OCR America was bad, but it was also a lot of fun.
That was so fun, man.
Both OCR Americas were a lot of fun. So it was bad, but there was so much fun in there that it kind of overwhelmed some of the bad.
Mike Stefano, looking at you, man.
Yeah, where are you, Mike
Stefano?
Stefano?
You, dude.
Yeah, and Jacob. We went to both of you guys.
Yeah. Oh, Jacob.
But we thought I thought Mike Stefano would be here, but I guess he got sick of it recently, so couldn't make it out for this event, even though it was Northeast based.
I do have a funny story from this one.
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah. Okay. So so I went out with Evan first at the 15K. The very first time you just like went out of the gate. So already I'm kind of slow or whatever, and I'm like, I've somehow got to make it through this entire weekend. And so right at the very end, I'm like, well, I kind of need to cut around this hill so I can catch Evan at the end, or else I'm going to be kind of worthless. And so we get out of man, I can't remember. It's like the last obstacle before you go over the most gigantic hill. And Evan was like, I think that way leads back to the village. And he pointed out to a clearing in the trees that led back out into the village, and into some residential neighborhoods. And I was like, okay, cool, I'll go that direction. And it added like over a mile. Like I came out of the trees right at the 6 or at the next mile marker where you would be, and then I just had to like run. So like I was like, dang it. I've added a whole extra mile, and you already finished by the time I got there.
Yeah, I'd already finished. Yeah, I felt bad because I pointed. I'd be like, I think that's a shortcut, and I was clearly very wrong.
It was great actually. Like when I was there, I was like, I'm so lost. This is exactly how the rest of this weekend's gonna go. I know it.
Yeah. So donations are still open. We got a Facebook online fundraiser, and then we have GoFundMe. GoFundMe, again, is the charity portion. So, again, all that money goes to Infinite Hero Foundation. So, whether you donate on Facebook or you donate through the GoFundMe link, it doesn't matter. They both go to the same place. I just got to know some people are picky about, so they don't like going through the Facebook or the vice versa. So, just giving you options there. Also had a bunch of cash donations there. So, thank you everyone that donated, whether it was $1 or $100. I do appreciate it. Any donation is helpful. And to me, it's like really the thought that counts. I know everyone's got different financial statuses and stuff like that, and priorities and stuff like that. So any donation would be much appreciated. Head over and please donate. We've been awake for a long time. We did take a couple-hour nap this afternoon, but essentially we've been awake since yesterday morning. I think I was awake for 34 hours before I finally went to bed.
Yeah.
And about 28 of those, I was walking up a hill. It's pretty terrible. Only up. About half was up, only up, and then half was up and down. So
Worst idea ever.
it was bad. When we were getting out of the car, my lower back and like between my shoulder blades was just tightened up so bad. So when we went to get up to go eat, I like stood up and my body was still bent over at 90 degrees. And I was like, gotta wait to loosen that up. Other than that, I'm not in too bad of a shape. I don't really have any blisters. My toes were a little hurt from just kind of jamming into the front of my shoes, but nothing like visible. I had a couple of really bad splinters go through my hand at one point.
I'm not even sure where that came from.
I think it was the top of Berlin Wall.
Oh, yeah. I did see them putting that back together.
Yeah. So, and then it feels, if you've done World's Toughest, that like that general exposure feeling. Like my lips are super dry and my face just kind of hurts from the wind.
Yeah, basically going up that entire mountain, it was wind hitting us in the face. Like, I'm not sure if the wind actually was ever coming from a different direction, but even as we turned, it felt like the wind is coming straight at our face.
It's always coming right
Every
at you.
turn, it hits you right in the face. It might be because all the way the tree line is set up, the wind is only coming down one way, and it's the way the road turns. So every time you turn, the wind is just hitting you in the face.
So when you're out there all night, you end up, like when you find something funny, you just kind of stick to it because your brain's too tired. So Bobby, you want to say what our favorite joke was for the night? You don't have to explain it because people should probably know what it is if they
Dirty Mike and the boys.
Dirty Mike and the boys. The old soup kitchen. So we were quoting the other guys. Like, but not, we weren't quoting the other guys, the movie, like just that scene. Just that bit.
That 30 seconds.
30 seconds.
We worked for 12 hours.
Let's see. I'm so sorry, Terry, because your car smells like a soup kitchen.
There was absolute chaos in the car because, like, it was in and out of it so quickly. Like, it was a short ride down, and then it was a ride to base camp, and then a ride back, and then picking up and heading back down. That it was absolute chaos in the car. Just stuff everywhere.
I couldn't believe how messy my car looked when I saw it. When I tried to clean it out this afternoon. I mean, you would think people were living in that car for like days.
Looks kind of like a mother raccoon and giving birth on the floor.
It's still funny. Funny.
It will forever be funny and funnier now.
Yes, I agree.
Dirty Mike.
So that was the 7th and final Ultra OCR fundraiser. So that's it. I'm out of ideas. And if you think of something bad, don't tell me. I don't want to do it. I'm exhausted. I mean, my body. So as we approach the end, a lot of people are like, oh well, we're almost there. But like when I look back, I viewed it as like a 7-year journey. So it's kind of like a culmination of a lot of things, just kind of all the different events that I've come up with over the last couple of years. So yeah, it's kind of relief to get it off my back, and kind of I don't know, also a little bit sad, because part of the journey is part of the whole experience. So
what you probably don't realize is, I believe it was my first CTG was actually the end of your first.
Oh, OCR America? Was that right?
And
did you go on the lap with us?
The log lap.
You going on the log lap?
Log lap.
Damn. So Daniel's been there for almost every one.
OCR
America.
I actually had no idea what was going on. I just remember people saying OCR America.
Oh, we got to back up.
I was like, okay.
So we gotta tell this story. This is probably my favorite part of the whole weekend. Through Infinite Hero, I've essentially there are some events where I'm Tough Mudder's staff, right? So I know a bunch of the staff now. I know what their protocols are. They have reoccurring meetings and stuff like that. So on Friday we showed up to the normal Friday meeting that morning, but Daniel wasn't there. He showed up later, and Daniel shows up and just starts integrating himself with the staff. And I'm pretty sure some people think he's part of their TMHQ now, because we're leaving and they're like, Daniel, when are we going to see you again? What event are you going to be at? And the Tough Mudder, Tough Mudder HQ was also great as far as like they hooked
they
us
were
up some
awesome.
food.
Yes.
Thanks, Steph.
Yes.
Yeah, and Steph hooked us up with some other stuff, so really appreciate everything that the TMHQ did. And then so Sunday at this point we've been awake again. We're 20 plus 24 hours. We're exhausted, and they had breakfast. They had breakfast delivered for their staff, just like they always do before an event. And Daniel goes in there, and it's not like again. People have no idea. People have no idea he does, and he's just like walks in there like he owns the place, and he's just loading up on food.
No. I've grabbed 2 plates that I'm loading up for Terry and Evan
so full.
while I'm stuffing my face with additional food. I know it had to look so crazy, and like I have zero cares. Like I'm walking through and holding stuff like I maybe bought it.
And even when we went in to grab lunch, so the event's over, me and Daniel walk in to grab lunch, and people are like, "Oh, hey, Daniel." I was like, "What?" Like, we're working together for like 2 years. Just say hi to Daniel first.
Who's that guy with?
I'm like, hey, Evan, look here. This is Evan. He's been running.
He runs away from the hero. You may not have heard of him.
One of my favorite things about Sunday morning was I can't remember who it was. I'm sorry, I can't remember your name. But someone said, "Oh, Daniel and Evan, do you know they've been up the entire time?"
Oh my god!
Oh, really?
I had no idea.
That must really made you feel good,
Oh my goodness.
So, Tough Mudder, I'll see you soon.
Be warned.
Oh man. All right, we're gonna start wrapping it up. Before we go, we'll go around the horn once real quick. Any kind of final thoughts or any other comments you want to make, or plug any sponsors? I know we had a bunch of sponsors that helped support the event. Aurora gave us a whole bunch of $100 gift cards that we raffle off. We also had Squirrel's Nut Butter give us a huge sample that we were able to give away a bunch, and we still have a bunch left over. So we're gonna probably give those out at Battle of the Lines events, and maybe OCRWC at the if you come over my table, assuming I have a table. I should have a table on OCRWC. And then who else do we have?
Those, sorry.
Yeah, that's for your nuts. Not
Really?
no. And then who else do we have? Aurora, Mudgear, Squirrel's Nut Butter, UFOs. UFOs provided 2 free pairs of shoes, 3 pairs of sandals to a winners. So big shout out to all those sponsors, kind of helping out, raising money. And again, Becca and Oakley and Infinite Hero for setting up the booth, manning the booth, and Becca's friend, I can't remember his name. Ryan.
He came due with the adult beverages as well.
Oh, very nice.
Yes.
He brought a Coors right when I needed it.
Yes.
When I needed him most.
All right, we'll start off with Dad. You got any final thoughts?
Yeah, I thought the Tough Mudder staff was really great. They're great people. Always coming over and asking if we needed anything, and they were there to support us, and I really appreciate it. And it was fun again, pacing. Although it's hard work, but I looking back at it, I really enjoyed it. It was a different spin on what I usually do for these events.
Damn. Go for it.
And of course the other guys on the team were great to be with. I mean, I'm so fortunate to be a part of OCR and meet all these people.
Daniel, what do you got?
Definitely a big shout out to Becca. She really helped out through the course of the day, both days actually, and then and again, like Tough Mudder and Steph, they really took care of us, giving us anything that we needed, and like Terry was saying, always asking us if we needed anything more. Evan, thanks for the invite. I still stand by worst event ever, and my quads can prove it. So, but it was just a good time. So,
Bobby, what do you got?
Yeah, that sucked. That was really hard. That was like that was the hardest thing I've done. physically yet. I would say, and I'm proud to say that I was a part of it.
Yeah. Again, so much stress was put on my crew this one, more than any of the other events I've done. So it's just a huge, really felt like a team accomplishment when I crossed the finish line. Did not feel like a personal achievement. So just thanks everyone for sticking with me and pulling me through it. Let's kind of leave it at that. Make sure you donate because that's why we kind of do all these things. And also because apparently we like to torture ourselves.
Pit and Pace Terry is the MVP.
Remember, the Preparis Pit Crew rules the night.
Right, that's right.
There was a lot of ground made up. I mean, that rings so true that there was so much ground made up in the middle of the night. So.
Yeah. At races, said charity, but yeah, that's what we do. All right, we're going to take off because we need to sleep and we have to catch flights tomorrow.
But next time you see us in a pit, make sure to holler, wave, and say, "Hey, Dirty Mike and the boys."
And you will get a call response.
All right, we'll catch all you later.